And today's movie opens with Keller Dover and his son Ralph hunting deer. Ralph takes the shot and drops the deer as Keller prays, and as they drive back home, Keller tells his son to always be vigilant and to always be ready for anything. The next day, the Dover family, Keller, his wife Grace, son and daughter, walk to a neighbor's house, the Birches, for Thanksgiving dinner. The families have a good time together while the adults cook and the kids go out. Anna and Joy run to an RV car parked in the street, and Anna jumps on the old RV, but Ralph stops her as they realize that somebody's inside, and they all return back to the house. After dinner, Anna and Joy sing a song that they made up for the family. They then get bored and ask to leave to the Dover's house so that Anna can show Joy this new toy that she got. Grace agrees to them leaving, but tells her daughter to ask her brother to accompany them to the other house. Sometime later, Keller realizes that the girls haven't returned yet, and when he goes to the other room, he finds Ralph, and he learns that the girls didn't come to him to take them home. And when Keller and Ralph go home, they don't find them there. Ralph then remembers the RV from before, but when they go to the previous parking spot, it was gone. They then run back to the Birches house to see if the girls somehow managed to get there, but when they make it there, both families realize that the girls are actually missing. At a diner, Detective Loki gets a call about the missing girls, and he immediately syncs up with the other officers, and after some search, they find the RV parked outside a gas station. Loki slowly gets into the car, but the driver Alex panics and tries to drive away, but he ends up crashing into a tree. Wait, hold on. Did you subscribe to our channel? Come on guys, you're here, you're watching the video. Help us out by hitting the subscribe button, as it really helps out me and my team to make more videos for you guys. And now, let's get back to the recap. The police then grab him and take him to the interrogation room, and Loki takes the investigation and spends all night with Alex questioning him. But he finds out that Alex actually has a mental impairment and that he has the IQ of a 10-year-old, which makes him unable to understand the situation. Loki then goes to see Alex's aunt, Holly, who raised him with his uncle after his parents died when he was 6. Alex's uncle left home 5 years ago after an argument with his aunt, and she explains that Alex had never been in trouble and spends most nights sleeping in the RV and doesn't really have much else to do. And without finding much evidence, Loki goes to the forensics lab and learns that the RV had no evidence indicating that the girls were forcibly taken into or struggled inside the RV, and Alex's low intelligence means that he couldn't have covered up such evidence. During the night, many volunteers search the woods calling for the girls, but to no avail, and in the morning, Loki travels to the Birch house and he gets better photos of their daughters. At the Dovers, Loki asks if there was a reason the girls ran away, and Grace was crying and she tells him that the girls were happy and that they had no reason to run away. Loki then vows to find the girls, and he greets Keller, who is sure that it's Alex since he tried to drive away when he saw the police. He tells him that the evidence against Alex is weak and tries to calm Keller down, and the polygraph tests taken prove inconclusive because of Alex's low IQ, and if the police are unable to find evidence against Alex, he will be released in 2 days. Loki then interviews offenders within a 10-mile radius of the family's house, and his last stop was at Father Patrick's house, and Patrick was drunk and he fell to the ground, so Loki breaks in and discovers a secret basement. And when he goes down this basement, he finds a dead man who was bound to a chair. Patrick is then taken to questioning, and he claims that he didn't know the person and that he came to him to confess about killing 16 children, and that he had to kill him because he confessed that he was going to kill more people. While on a search party, Keller gets a call from Grace telling him that Alex is being released from custody. Keller runs to the station and attacks him in the parking lot, and he hears Alex say, "They didn't cry until I left them." And there was nobody else around who was close enough to hear this, and the police grab Keller before he can ask him more, and they take him to the captain. Keller tells Loki and the captain what he heard, but they tell him that it's not evidence enough to arrest Alex. Loki promises to follow upon his suspicion, and Keller is let go with a warning for the attack. Loki then interviews Alex and Holly again about the parking lot incident, and he tries to scare Alex into telling him the truth, but Alex doesn't budge. Later that night, Keller goes to Alex's house, and he sees him from afar as Alex walks dogs. Alex then starts singing a song Anna and Joy used to sing, proving Keller's suspicion. Keller gets out of his car and abducts Alex at gunpoint, and he imprisons him in his father's old abandoned apartment building. The next morning, he takes Franklin and shows him that he captured Alex, and he tells him what he heard. Franklin says to take him to the police, but Keller explains that the police won't do anything and that they need to take matters into their own hands or their daughters are going to die. Franklin then agrees to help, and Keller starts beating up Alex for information. Meanwhile, Loki researches past unsolved missing children's cases, and he finds one case of a boy that went missing 26 years ago when he was just 6 years old. But Loki is then called into the interrogation room, and Patrick reveals to him that the man told him that he kills kids because he is waging a war against God. Loki thinks that this information is useless, and he's also told that the man's body has not been identified yet. Later that night, the neighborhood was holding a candlelit prayer for the missing girls, and Loki notices a man acting suspicious, but when he tries to talk to him, the man runs away and escapes. And as a new suspect, this man's face was sketched and released to the public. And in the next morning, Loki gets a call from a store, and the clerk tells him that she recognizes the man and reveals that he regularly buys children's clothes. Later, Franklin was trying to sneak out of the house to meet up with Keller, but his wife Nancy notices him and he tells her the truth. He then brings her with him and she finds Alex, who was brutally beaten and tied to the bathroom floor. Feeling shocked, she unties Alex and tries to talk to him nicely, but he headbutts her and attempts to escape, but he is caught by Keller and tied up again. That night, Keller brings the Birches back to the apartment and he builds an enclosure around the bathtub. It's devoid of light except for a small hole where they can talk to Alex, and Keller was controlling the shower and plans to use extreme cold and heat to torture Alex into giving up information. We are then taken to the Birches' house where a strange man walks silently, and later the man enters the Dovers' house and Grace hears something and jumps out of bed. She then finds the window open and she thought that her daughter came back. Detective Loki arrives to take note of the incident, and when he asks her where Keller is, she tells him that he's with the police on a search party. Knowing that this isn't true, Loki follows Keller the next morning, but Keller notices him and parks at a liquor store and then comes to Loki's car with his drink and claims that he's been drinking alone so that his wife wouldn't see him. Keller is very angry at Loki and yells at him for following him instead of doing his job and finding his daughter, who's been missing for days now. And the next day, Keller continues to torture Alex, and Loki then arrives at the building and enters the ground floor. He finds Keller pretending to be asleep after drinking, and Loki was still suspicious and asks Keller to show him around. But before he can check all the rooms, he gets a call from the clerk telling him that she saw the man on the sketch that the police gave out and that she just wrote down his plates. Loki then finds the man and confronts him about his purchases, and the man tries to run, but this time Loki catches him and handcuffs him. And when he searches the house, he finds all this weird stuff like boxes filled with maze books and snakes and children's clothes that are drenched in blood. At the police station, the families are called to identify wardrobes of children as the man has confessed to killing the kids even though bodies were not discovered yet. And Keller identifies Anna's sock from the photo, confirming the confession. The man was in the interrogation room and Loki was trying to find out where he put the bodies, but the man just draws a maze. Loki loses patience and beats the man up, and other cops rush in to stop him, and the guy then manages to take a gun from one of the officers and he offs himself. Keller, not willing to give up even with the confirmation of the sock, goes back to the apartment and continues his torture. Alex finally talks and mentions that his real name is not Alex and that Keller can find the girls in the maze. Confused by what he was saying, Keller goes to Holly's home to find out more information, and he apologizes for attacking Alex at the station. She invites him in, and during their conversation, she tells Keller that her son died of cancer while he was young, and since then, her and her husband's faith in God was not the same. Back at the station, Loki was sitting on his desk feeling very angry, and he notices a man killed by Patrick who wore a necklace that had a maze similar to the one that the man was drawing, and he also finds out that the forensic results on the kid's clothes was pig's blood and not human. The forensics cop explains that the man was copying a fake killer from a book called The Invisible Man, which was written by a man who believed that there was a serial killer that abducted children. But this all doesn't add up for Loki since Keller recognized the sock, and he drives to Keller's home and goes at the back of the window, and he finds a man's shoe print on the floor and finds the matching sock in the bushes. Later, Grace gets a call as Joy has been found wandering in drugged and she was being hospitalized. Keller and Grace drive to the hospital, then Keller tries to question the young girl as Anna remains missing, and in her drugged state, Joy rambles saying that Keller was there, giving the impression that Keller was in on her abduction. Hearing this, he felt very stunned and he tries to remember every place he was, and then he runs off as Loki reaches the hospital. Loki tries to stop him, considering him a suspect, but Keller escapes and Loki heads toward Keller's apartment building, believing that he was there, but he only finds the imprisoned Alex. Keller had gone to Holly's home where she invites him in, and he confronts her about the girls, but Holly was already ready for him and she points her gun at him. She forces him to put on handcuffs and makes him drink the same drug Anna and Joy drank, and she directs him to an old car outside. She reveals that she and her husband waged war against God for killing their son with cancer, and by making children disappear, they plan to corrupt parents and make them evil. She orders Keller to drive a car that's been covering a pit where she was apparently hiding the girls, and when the police first came to her house, she shoots him in the leg and she drops him inside the pit, and she closes the lid and parks the car again over it. With a small flashlight, Keller explores his dungeon and he finds his daughter's whistle and prays for Anna's safety. Later, the captain tells Loki to go to Holly's and let her know about Alex, and Loki knocks on the door but there was no answer, and he then enters the house and sees an old photo of Holly's husband in the RV. He then hears this slight noise coming from a room and he walks toward it, and as he gets to the room he finds Holly just as she was trying to inject Anna with a syringe. Loki orders her to stop, but she tries to fire at him. They then shoot at each other and Holly is killed, but he is merely wounded. And even though he was bleeding a lot, he manages to take Anna to the hospital. The next morning in the hospital, Loki reads a newspaper and the headline says Barry, aka Alex, has been reunited with his family. Grace then comes in and says that Anna thanks him for saving her, and she also tells him that Keller still hasn't contacted her. And she realizes that if Keller even came back to his family, he'll be going to jail for abducting Alex and torturing him. And that night, the police have been digging at Holly's home for previous dead bodies, and as they leave for the night, Loki stays behind for a while, and as the movie ends, he can hear the faint noise of a whistle coming from the pit. Does he discover Keller? Does he just ignore the sound? We don't know! And that is how the movie comes to an end. I hope you guys enjoyed this recap. Make sure to leave a like, leave me a comment, and most of all, subscribe to my channel. I love you guys so much and I promise to see you on my next recap. Bye!